What's up, everybody? Welcome to Bios3 Raw TV. I got an email today. Today's like Friday the 3rd, I think, something like that. But his name is Eric, and Eric sent me an email, and he said he would really like to hear someone talk about Trevor Smith. Like, give him props. Give Trevor Smith props. And I know I've talked about him in the past. I don't remember what video it was in and what the context was, but I thought that, there are people that, these new viewers and new people getting into the sport may not know about. People that have come before that were trailblazers that help people that, some of the old timers may remember these names and stuff, but I don't want to say they're forgotten, but, life moves on and people have a tendency to move on and they're not really talked about, but they should be given that respect for the stuff that they did. So we'll start with Trevor. And Trevor Smith was the owner of a company called Nuclear Nutrition. And I think it had to have been about maybe 1999, 2000, somewhere around there. Maybe 2000, 2001 was I first made aware of Nuclear Nutrition. They had like a meal replacement that, like, it came like these little pouches. You opened them up and you poured them in. They were fruit flavored and actually tasted pretty good. They had a couple different products, and they had the SEO, Nuclear Nutrition Site Enhancement Oil. It was a form of synthol, pump and pose. I think Chris Clark's Pump and Pose was the only one that was out then besides the Nuclear Nutrition Site Enhancement Oil. And back then, like, I think I had, it was like a dial-up on your computer, and I had web TV, okay, which was like internet that came through your TV and had a little keyboard that was like a Bluetooth thing that, went to with your TV. And I went through some emails back and forth after I ordered this shit, and I wasn't really sure what to do with it. And Trevor had sent me his phone number, and he said, give me a call. He was the owner of the company, and I had no idea what this guy looked like, because back then there was no internet, so if you didn't see pictures of him somewhere or met him, you had no idea. Now, little did I know, he was like a 400-pound, he was big, he wasn't shredded, but he was a 400-pound, legitimately, like, made, there's pictures of him, if you type Trevor Smith in Google, you see the pictures of him and Cutler standing together. He had like these long braids, and he was fucking gigantic. And he gave me his phone number and said, give me a call, we'll talk. So I did. I called him, and I would talk to him from time to time, and he explained to me how to use the synthol and how to make it look so that it, didn't look like you were using it. And, we talked about diet and stuff and training. He came out with something called Demon Training. It was Beyond Failure Training, Demon Training. If you look that up, you'll find it. It is absolutely fucking insane. He was training Roland Gerlach at the time, or Ian Harrison, I think, or maybe both of them at the time, and it was the era of everybody was just becoming a mass monster at that time. It was like the era of mass that was going on. And he was a big motherfucker. And eventually he wound up passing away, and I don't really recall. I think he was estranged from his wife at the time, a really pretty blonde girl, and I think he committed suicide. He either considered suicide or had a heart attack, one or the other. One of those two things happened, and he passed away. And there was a lot of people that knew him. Like Jay Cutler knew him. Like a lot of people in the fitness industry knew this guy. And he was a good guy. And he talked to me for hours about things that, I was just a dumb young kid. He didn't have to talk to me about anything. I couldn't do anything for him in the fitness industry. He had nothing to gain by talking to me, but he spent the time and educated me on some things, and he didn't have to do that. So, he's definitely missed in a lot of ways that, he had groundbreaking products that came out with his company. He had a groundbreaking routine that he had come out with for training. But he was a good guy, so it just sucks that he's not around anymore. Another person I want to talk about who's not around anymore is Anthony DeRezzo. Anthony passed away at the Masters Nationals, I believe, in 2007 or 2008. He's in Raising the Bar with Dave Paulson. I believe it's Raising the Bar 2 or 3. He actually passed away at the competition. And I first met Anthony at Daniel Chapter 1 when I was working there. He came there with our buddy Todd Brulette. And I remember him walking up to the door. He kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger as he got closer and closer. He's like 260-something at 5'10", and he was getting ready for nationals or whatever it was. And, I started to get to know him a little bit from there, and I'd see him at the shows, and, we'd go watch him compete at the New England shows. He was kind of like a legend around the area. He was a real popular guy. He was like the guy in our area. Everybody knew Anthony. He was super strong, mass monster, about 300 pounds. He was just the guy. You couldn't miss him, and, he was so intimidating looking, but so nice and so calm and so low key. Like, it was just his personality. And I remember I was 19 years old. I was going into my final season of competition, and I had asked Anthony. I said, "Can you make me my diet?" And I paid him for it. I was like, I'll pay you for it. You know, I have no problem paying you for it. And I remember him, you know, looking at me and just going to his house and sitting down. And back then you handwrite everything and ask you questions and stuff. And he'd say, okay, let me see what you look like. So, you know, I'd pose and stuff. And he was like, how old are you again? I was like 19. He's like, oh, forget it. You're good. Like, if I was in the men's division, I'd have a lot more work to do. But as a teenager, hey, those guys, you know, they're not meant to be top pro bodybuilders. You know, I mean, you could be if you're genetically inclined to, but, you know, and I would see him at the clubs and stuff here and there. Like, you know, we go out to a bar or whatever, and you'd see him kind of pop his head in and see what's going on. And everything was really cool. And, you know, I'd see him at my buddy Steve's house, Steve Reeves. He'd show up, and even though he'd be there for 2 hours, he'd bring his big igloo cooler with him, big blue and white cooler. He'd come down, put it on the floor with all his food in it. He was really dedicated to bodybuilding, and eventually, you know, the bodybuilding lifestyle and drugs caught up with him, and he had a heart attack at the Masters Nationals and passed away. He was like 42 or 43 years old, and, you know, anytime you mention his name up in Rhode Island, not only is he remembered as being, oh, he was that big guy, he was massive, that was awesome, he was super strong, he's remembered as being that nice guy to everybody, which is how I would want to be remembered. And there's another one person I want to talk about who, this is going to go way back to some people. I mean, a lot of you guys are going to go, what the fuck? But there's somebody going to watch this video and know exactly who I'm talking about. His name was STK, Southern Trend Killer. That was his handle on message boards and stuff. And I came in contact with him, I believe, through Mesomorphos, which was a message board at the time, or Underground Outlaw, or Underground something or other, Anabolic Outlaw, or something like that. There was a couple different boards that were around, and it was like the first boards that you got on that were popping off the internet. There was a lot of information, and for some reason, again, this guy, STK, took a liking to me. So we started going back and forth with emails, and, you know, we were talking about all kinds of different things. And he was very big on, you know, education about the drug thing. You know, he really was. He was more like, you know what, the reason why I'm doing this is so you don't fuck yourself up, and I have information, I feel responsible because you're a nice kid, etc. And I remember one time he had sent me, he said, here's a picture of my last contest. He sends me a picture of Dorian Yates with the face blocked up. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, man, this guy's massive. And I look at it, I said, I see Dorian Yates' tattoo from behind. So I sent him a thing, I said, yo, that's Dorian Yates. He said, good, you caught that, ha. And then he sent me the actual picture of him, which to this day I don't know if it was or not. And, you know, he was one of the first ones who talked to me about insulin. They really talked to me about insulin, about how not to kill myself with it. And, you know, we went on to forge this friendship that eventually he told me to go over to a message board called professionalmuscle.com, which he said there was a guy named Wild One, Excel Beyond, and Big A. He said, go over there, and I'm going to tell them that you're coming. You'll be welcomed with open arms over there. So I did. I went over there, and it just so happened that Mr. Huge, who was the owner of Mesomorphos, was there, and he kind of, you know, stuck up for me as I got into it with because my personality, sometimes I get into it with people. But, you know, I was over there, and there was a lot of information on that board, and I was learning a lot, interacting with a lot of people, and, you know, like Dusty Hanshaw was there, Shelby Starnes was there, Peter Putnam was there. I mean, Flex Lewis was on there, King Kamali was on there, Jason Arntz was on there. I mean, there was a lot of guys on there that were openly sharing information about a lot of things. Justin Harris, Troponin was on there. I mean, just it was crazy how awesome it was. And anybody that knows what I'm talking about knows exactly what I'm talking about. And then hadn't heard from STK in a while. And, you know, I checked the boards and stuff, and he hadn't been around. And then his girlfriend or his wife had posted a post and said that he's gone. He got into a motorcycle accident and he died. And all of a sudden, just like that, you know, people were like, fuck. And supposedly he was part of this thing called the Bloodline, they called it. That's what he called it. And the Bloodline was a bunch of people that were deep inside the bodybuilding underground. Like, they were the ones that knew everything, knew everybody. It was, you know, all about this group of guys. And to this day, I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, he could have been messing with me or whatever, but all the other things that he talked about panned out. And he went way out of his way again, you know, to help me like the other guys did. And, you know, and I think I took that kind of hard because I felt like he kind of had given me that push into that professional muscle board, which actually exposed me to a lot of things I didn't know and a lot of people that I would never get to know. And I learned so much, and I got respect from that board because I got on there and I earned it over time. And, you know, to find out that, you know, of course you figure, hey, at some point I'm going to meet up with this guy. You know what I mean? Like, at some point I'm going to go out to California or Florida, wherever he's at. We're going to train, man. We're going to have dinner and stuff. It's going to be cool. We're going to kick it. And, you know, and you sit back and you're like, fuck, you know, like, this isn't going to happen because he's gone. And it was a shock then. And, I mean, a lot of people right now, you know, are not going to know who he is. But there's going to be somebody watching this video that is going to remember him and what kind of guy he was and how cool he was and stuff. So, Eric, who sent me this email, was right. We should talk about these guys that have passed and guys that have helped people out like that have blazed trails and tried to help the younger generation when the internet was still in its infancy. Like, nobody knew what the hell kind of information was going to be out there, but these guys saw ahead of time that bad information is going out there, and they would take it upon themselves to help out the younger generation so they wouldn't hurt themselves. And, to this day, I mean, I use some of the principles that all three of those guys taught me, and, it's something that I've handed down to people, and you guys have seen me talk about stuff on here, and some of that stuff came from those guys. You know what I mean? Nobody knows everything on their own. When you learn something, it came from someone else, whether it be a book or someone handed it down to you, it came from someone else. So this is just a video to show those guys some respect and to let everybody else know that, we haven't forgot these guys, or at least I haven't forgot these guys, and Eric hasn't forgot these guys. biosafetraining@gmail.com. Leave comments down below, but don't fight. www.biosafetraining.com is a blog and where it's the Never Forget Bicep, and we're out.